What's up, IT Nation? Here with Patrick Beggs, and we have a fantastic discussion, conversation. Patrick, I feel like I don't get to do too many streams with you, so this is kind of fun in itself.
I know it's we gotta change that, Matt. Definitely, you gotta poke me a little more, and I'll jump on here with you guys. We're really excited to be here, and especially about this topic, man. We're gonna tease folks a little bit of what we got coming up at IT Nation Secure. So really excited.
We are.
Yeah.
And you know, it's one of my streams because I have Dunkin' Donuts ready to go. Got it right before the meeting.
And you can guess where I'm at in the world with my my brick background. Most time people see my dog background, and
this should be a signature thing.
All my government military stuff and usually in the background, so that people always wonder where I'm at. So, yep.
So we're here though today to talk about the keynote, the guest keynote coming up at IT Nation Secure, June 2nd through 4th. 2025. And before we bring on our guest, I want to talk about how we ended up here with this keynote. And it's not because we ran out of budget, not because everyone else said no, like we were joking about pre-show. Internally, we were talking about who should our guest keynote be. And Patrick just, with extreme enthusiasm, recommended this person. So Patrick, how did you, in fact, before you tell the story, let's bring Neil up. We don't want him to sit in the green room.
We're going to embarrass him a little bit. So.
Right? So our keynote, Neil Wyler. Neil, thank you for both doing the keynote and for coming on and dealing with me and Patrick, who are just making some nonsensical banter so far.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Is it coming on there?
So before we get to the background question, which we're going to ask you, I want to, Patrick, I want you to tell the story of how you even met Neil. How did you find him, and what led to you making this recommendation to bring him in for the keynote? I'm super excited based on everything you've said.
I was in Chicago in October of last year, and I was at a CISO summit. There was about 25, 30 chief information security officers at the summit in Chicago. And we had a bunch of interesting, breakout guest speakers on various different topics. And Matt, I'm a little bit, I can throw some shade when it comes to speakers, right? I can be hard to please. And when Neil came in and really broke down what his role and his background, and I'm not gonna say it, and I'll let you guys tee it up. But it was one of those speeches where you're like, oh, we got to have this. Like, it was one of those things where more people need to hear this, right? It speaks to the lowest level security professionals all the way up to a CISO, right? Board of directors actually were in the room as well. Everyone was captivated, right? But it wasn't just, war stories per se, right? It was actually some really practical, some really useful and interesting conversations, and kind of how he weaves the storytelling into some really interesting and important real world things that folks do see every day. And I think at IT Nation Secure, folks are going to be able to relate to that. That's what jumped out at me. I'm like, got to have him at Secure. And I was a bit of a pain in the butt, right? As we were trying to decide every year, we always come together. It's an interesting dynamic of how we decide who's gonna get up there on stage. So, for the record, I'm batting 2 for 3 of recommendations of my 3 years here at ConnectWise. So, thanks, Neil.
So, Neil, aside from now hiring Patrick to do all of your intros for all future speaking engagements, can you tell our audience about your background and about you?
Yeah, I'm looking for an agent, Patrick. So yeah, sure. Yeah. So just a quick introduction of me. So my name is Neil Wyler. It's the name that my mother gave me, but everybody in information security and the hacker community knows me as Grifter. I always say by day, I'm the VP of Defensive Services for Coalfire. But by night, I run all the technical operations for the Black Hat security briefings. And I've been doing that, running the NOC for now, this will be 23 years this summer. And then I'm one of the main organizers of DEF CON, the largest hacker convention in the world. I've written a few books. I travel around the world speaking places. I am on the review board for Black Hat and DEF CON, so I help pick the content that makes it to the stages there. Like, and all those things, like, you know, they sound a little bit braggy, but in reality, what it means is that, like, I love security. I just love security, and I always have. Like, it's been part of my life since I was a kid. When I was a punk hacker kid coming up and, you know, learning the way some of us learned. And I'm lucky enough that the industry that grew out of my passion ends up putting food on the table for my kids, you know.
So you have the experience, the background. Tell us a little bit, without giving too much away, about what you're planning to talk about at the event. What's your keynote about?
Sure. So it's basically an inside look of what it's like to architect, to deploy, and then to defend a network like the one that we have at Black Hat. So I run the NOC, and we call it a NOC because we do run all of the network operations as well as a security operations center. We replace every router, every switch, every firewall, every access point at the venues that we go to in Singapore, in London, and in Las Vegas. But so, like, a show like Las Vegas is 25,000 attendees. 25,000 security professionals, which really just means a bunch of hackers, right? And sure, they do it as their day job, but it also means they like to play. And so on a network like Black Hat, which is often billed as one of the most hostile networks in the world, it can be challenging, right? Like, how do you choose the right solutions? Do they stand up to the test of being hit by 20,000 very skilled individuals poking at them? What's actually bad on the network versus what's normal? At the show, the way that I describe it to people is, if you're at your company, right, and you're looking for malicious traffic on the network, you are looking for a needle in a haystack, right? Like, the amount of data that we have to comb through is not shrinking by any means, right? It's growing every day, and it's an incredible challenge. And so if you're looking for a needle in a haystack on your network, I'm looking for a needle in a needle stack on mine. The majority of the traffic that you see on the network at Black Hat would be considered bad at any other, in any other network. It's the kind of traffic that would turn an analyst's hair white in the first 5 minutes. But the reality is that is normal for us. It means that somebody's teaching a class and they're doing a lab, or they're showing a demo up on stage, or they're showing their friends something sitting in a hallway at the conference, right? So it's highly malicious traffic, but what is the actual malicious inside of that, right? It's a difficult challenge, but it is a fun one to have to deal with every year.
So Patrick, then the next obvious question, aside from us talking about this on our breakout after the keynote, which, by the way, Patrick and Neil and I are doing a breakout after the keynote about applying messages from that keynote into your real world business application. What made you want to recommend this to our partner base? Like, what's the connection for them to something like this?
So, as I kind of touched on earlier, it's not someone up there. Although, Neil, you've written several books, it's not someone up there, touting their book, or it's not the typical speaker circuit type of presentation that you get. It really is, as Neil said, it's real world relatable type of anecdotes, but also real, hardcore stories of what really has happened, and some of the challenges. I know he just touched, just hit the tip of the iceberg from what I heard last year. Some of the challenges that a lot of the MSP owner operators will relate to, especially because they wear many different hats. Matt, this, ran an MSP, right? If somebody starts talking about a knock, you're going to start listening, right? And I think we always can do better, and I think we want to make our content for IT Nation Secure more relatable, and that's really what came across when I heard Neil's speech. It was like, this is relatable for me as a security practitioner. We have a threat hunt team, and let me tell you, that's what really stood out from a threat hunting standpoint. The proactive side of security that we have here at ConnectWise, right? I took a few of Neil's tips and sent it to some of our threat hunters, and they were like, "Yep, that makes a lot of sense." So that's what we're trying to hope that bleeds into the crowd at IT Nation Secure. So.
It's such a unique perspective here, in that often when you're talking keynote speakers or an event, you're finding yourself having to choose between, is this a really cool and fun story, or is it practically useful? In this case, it's both, right? For everyone in the audience, they can get something out of this. Man, I'm trying not to ask the questions that make you give away your keynote, Neil, because like I'm curious. Is there something small you can share? Like what's something that would be bad or considered, not malicious traffic or malicious findings on a corporate network that's just normal in your world when you're looking at it? What's something that's like, wouldn't necessarily raise an alarm bell for you, but somebody else might see it?
Sure. So it's probably, I would say, just like communication to known malicious sites, right? Like we have a ton of threat intelligence that we've got, and we've got a threat intelligence platform that we're using to make sure that we're looking at what's known bad out there, and we see what I would consider to be an excessive amount of communication to malicious URLs, known command and control servers, that kind of thing. And so where you might see that in a normal corporate environment and go, uh-oh, like why are they touching that? Why are they doing that? In our case, what we do is we basically have all of this data, and we have to say, like, is that normal for what's going on in that particular portion of the network, right? So we're setting up VLANs where, the way that we've got our access points deployed and stuff like that, we'll say, okay, well that VLAN is assigned to the web hacking class, and we know that these types of sites are being hit, but that's in line with what that class teaches, right? I'm like, so that's likely a lab, it's likely something. And then we'll also look and we'll say, okay, well, it looks like 15 out of 30 of the machines that are currently connected for that class are all hitting that same malicious site. So we're going to call that good, right? The challenging thing about the network at Black Hat is that we can't block anything, right? If we were to block that traffic, then the lab doesn't work. If we were to block, traffic, then a demo doesn't work. And so we have to go in. We can't rely on alerts. We get thousands upon thousands, actually tens of thousands of alerts over the course of the show. And there's no way to actually work through all of those. What we end up doing is, as Patrick mentioned, is a significant amount of threat hunting. So a lot of the folks who are sitting butts in seats in the NOC are threat hunters. And so they're going in and saying, like, what's the actual outlier here? If everybody in this class is hitting this malicious site or these malicious sites, but this one guy over here is hitting this one, why is he hitting that one? And we'll go out and look, and we'll realize, like, oh, that guy was compromised when he showed up at the show. And so, we go and let them know, like, hey, you've got a problem and you didn't realize it, right? So yeah, it's an interesting challenge.
Awkward conversation with security professional having to go up and say, I'm sure there's probably egos involved in video. Like, what are you talking about? There's no way, right? That's got to be.
It's always like, I've been doing this for this many years, right? Like that kind of conversation.
I don't know what you're talking about, dude.
Right.
Yeah, PCAPs don't lie, though. That's the thing. Is it's like, even when we do get that, we get the pushback on it or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, well, you've heard, I'm sure, PCAP or it didn't happen. Well, we have the packets, and so we're just like, well, here it is. We show them to, and they're like, oh no, So yeah.
All right, I want to jump in with a question without spoiling too much. Just give us a quick anecdote of one of the challenges that you have with the venue. What is any challenges that you have with the venue that you're setting these networks up in, right? I mean, if I was I have some former colleagues that are in the casino in the hotel space from an InfoSec standpoint, and my head would explode if you rolled in there, dude. I'd be like, you're not doing that. But any anecdotes on how that challenge is? So.
Sure. Actually, we built a pretty strong relationship with the team. Like, we're at Mandalay Bay, which is owned by MGM. So we have a really strong relationship with MGM. Basically, the reality is they react, when we first came in there, they reacted the exact same way that you just said, where they were like, not on my network, right? And we're like, Yeah, absolutely. Not on your network. And that's, like I said, we replace every router, every switch, every firewall, and every access point because one, I'm a control freak, right? And so I want to have control of that hardware. I want to make the decision on who the vendors are that we choose and why we choose them. They have the right features. They can stand up to the load, to the level of attacks that are thrown at them, that kind of thing. And so when we're not at a show, myself and Bart Stump, who's my partner in crime on the Black Hat Knock, we are doing demos with vendors. We're having them show us different things. We're discussing different products. Are we going to swap something out that we've been using for a couple of years because maybe it hasn't developed as much as we thought it should? So we are sitting in, a CISO like role where we're like, okay, we're responsible for the safety and the stability and the security of this network. We have to make these choices and make the right ones. We partner with vendors, and we do partner with them. There are no sponsors for Black Hat. You can't sponsor your way into the NOC. The equipment that we use because we believe it is the best solution for what it is that we're trying to accomplish. But like I said, that means sitting in the role of like customer, where we're getting pitched products constantly and we have to decide what it is that we what we set up. So we don't use a lot of the venues, infrastructure. We're just using the wires in the wall, but we do partner with them as far as like threat intelligence sharing. We have meetings with them twice a day. And actually for the Las Vegas show, all of the properties along like the Strip all have a call together. So while they may be competitors at other times of the year, during that week and a half that we affectionately call Security Summer Camp, where you have B-Sides Las Vegas, Black Hat, and DEF CON all happening, they all get together and share intel on calls with one another, including local law enforcement and the FBI. So it's like, here's what we're seeing. This is the types of attacks that we're seeing. This stayed inside of the network, or we saw somebody targeting something in the actual hotel property. So watch at the other properties for this type of activity. And all of that intelligence sharing happens between those groups, those competitor groups. And it's actually like, that's how it should be, right? Like even if we're in the same industry, if there's something where we know like, oh, there are threat actors who are coming after us, we should be telling one another, like, this is the intel I have. They came at us like this. They used these tools. They did these techniques. It left behind these, indicators. And so look for this kind of thing. And so in Las Vegas for that week and a half, all of those properties, they get real chummy with each other because they want to make sure that none of them run into a massive issue, right? So
it's like you're setting up this temporary transient micro ISO just for the duration of the show.
It's a bit.
So I'm guessing you'll go into this during your presentation, but can you give us the really short version of how did you end up doing this? Like, what got you here?
Yeah,
how did you get?
Yeah, so I'm just involved with DEF CON again, like, hacker kid my whole life, growing up, and I was involved with DEF CON. I was the administrator of the DEF CON forums. I had complained on there about how expensive Black Hat was for basically like a student. I was 22, 23 years old at the time. And I was like, I can't afford to spend thousands of dollars to go, and I'd love to go, but I have to miss out on this content because of it. And a friend said, hey, you could possibly volunteer there. And so they hooked me up with the right people at Black Hat to have me volunteer. I volunteered for one show, and it was the Seattle show. It was a Windows show. And they liked me. They were like, oh yeah, it was great having you. We'll see you this summer. And then the next Black Hat show at that time, the Europe show, was in the spring, and they went off to Amsterdam. But the individual who ran the network left all the equipment on the loading dock in Seattle, and it didn't go to Amsterdam. So then he didn't do that job anymore. And they called me and were like, hey, we really liked you. Like, would you be interested in like running the network? And they were like, you can bring a team. Obviously, we'll pay you. We'll do whatever. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So they handed over the network to a 23-year-old, which, like they would never do at the time or now, but it was at the time. It was I don't know. We were all young because it was a new industry. So.
So do you find that, I guess it's different, but which is harder? Is this harder, or are some of the cases that you work with day to day in your quote unquote like real day job harder, or how's it different?
I guess the thing that's in common is that it's all fun to me. I genuinely get up every day and love what I do. I feel incredibly, incredibly lucky to get to do what is my passion. I always, I say I would do this for free. I'm glad I don't have to. But this is what I would do regardless of what it paid. I just absolutely love security. I like the challenge. I like the cat and mouse game. I was on the offensive side for many years and then moved to the defensive side because I was like, okay, well, I've done that. And now let me take what I've learned from that and turn it into how do we help secure these things rather than just kicking holes in them. So the commonality is I love both sides of it. There are different challenges at Black Hat. It's a challenge of we're designing, deploying, and then protecting a network that we deploy an enterprise class network in a couple of days. Everything has to work. We ship pallets worth of equipment. We do a lot of planning. We pre-configure devices before they're sent out. All of that kind of thing. So there's a massive challenge there just logistically in deploying the network. But then once we're there and doing it again, it's just an absolute blast. It's the most stressful 2 weeks of my life, like the Las Vegas show for sure, and the Singapore and London shows to a smaller degree. But that Vegas show, the Black Hat and DEF CON timeframe is crazy stressful. But I always walk away from it going, "Ooh, that was great." In the normal corporate world, it's the challenges are different. It's challenges of having the C levels like understand why we need to put the spend where we need to put it and where we lack visibility and how that affects our attack surface, or where putting your budget will do the most for risk reduction and like those things. And so there was a lot more political understanding. So that's necessary there. And where at Black Hat, everybody knows what the mission is and why it's important. And so, yeah.
All right. So as we start to wrap up, Patrick, any last thoughts that you want to get across? Anything you're looking forward to in particular for the show coming up?
I'm looking forward to obviously, having Neil on stage and everyone hearing his story and really pulling away some really great information from that. But also, Matt, we've been working hard on the breakout sessions, and we've been trying to, to level up. I'll use that term, level up in the sense of things are going to look a little different this year at IT Nation Secure on the breakout side, and we've got some really great folks externally helping us as well in the MSP community. So we're excited. I'm excited to get the feedback and just feel the vibe. I think we're going to have a different vibe there. We usually, a couple thousand people. It's a great venue, but I think I'm excited most to feel what the different vibe is going to be like this year. So that's where my head's at right now. So
I think so too. There's some really cool stuff coming. Patrick, you've been a huge help on some of the breakouts and coming up with that content. I'm really looking forward to it. Neil, you can have the last word. Any thoughts before we go? Any parting advice to the audience or anything you're looking forward to?
Yeah. I'm just looking forward to being out there, meeting everybody, having cool conversations. Like I said, I love security. I love talking about it. I love hearing the challenges and trying to come up with solutions. So, it should be a good time.
Great.
Okay, so Neil is doing his keynote, and right after that, me and Patrick and Neil will be doing a breakout session, talking about applying this to your business. And let's be honest, just kind of talking security. We'll go way off script like we always do during breakout sessions. If you haven't registered yet, registration is still open. Early bird registration is still open, and we hope to see you there. Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Neil, for coming on.
Matt, appreciate it, man. Thanks, Neil. Yeah, guys, take care.